We'll turn to the forthcoming US elections, and former President Donald Trump has made a high-profile return to Twitter, or X as it's now known. It was a live chat hosted by the social media platform's owner and Trump supporter, Elon Musk. The audio conversation was delayed by more than 40 minutes because of technical issues, which Musk said had been caused by a massive cyber attack. When it finally did start, the two men spoke for 2 hours on a range of topics, including the attempt on Mr. Trump's life, labor relations, and immigration. True to form, the Republican presidential nominee took a series of swipes at his Democratic rival, Kamala Harris.
We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden in a different...
Yeah.
Look, she hasn't done an interview since this whole scam started. And say what you want. This was a coup. This was a coup of a president of the United States. He didn't want to leave.
I think we're in massive trouble, frankly, with the Kamala administration, and that's my honest opinion. And I think really it's essential that you win for the good of the country.
Like we're having a great conversation right now. Kamala wouldn't have this conversation. She can't because she's not smart. You know, she's not a smart person, by the way. She can't have this conversation.
This is a really big point. You can actually have a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
Well, they seem to be having a good time. Let's go through this with Jonathan Nagler, who's a professor of politics at New York University. Welcome to DW, Professor. Why did Donald Trump do this?
Thanks for having me. It's free advertising. It's a very simple answer as to why any politician is on a social media platform. They're not paying money and they're reaching people. And this was a case where he could reach people and be interviewed by someone who, as we just saw in the clip, was very sympathetic to him. So the why is simply to reach people. This is more free advertising. And 1 million people isn't that many people in the sense that, like, when he's done things on YouTube that have reached far larger audiences. So this is a very interesting thing. He reached 1 million people, but that's not nearly his biggest audience. And it hasn't generated a lot of secondary coverage. You don't see the rest of media full of the content of this interview. So it's not as if, other than those 1 million people who bothered to tune in, and we don't really know it's 1 million. Elon Musk said it was 1 million. Did that 1 million people really tune in for 2 hours? I don't think any of us think that happened. That's an awful lot of patience. But so it's free advertising.
Right. And so is it too early to tell who, besides the media, was actually paying attention to this?
It is too early to tell. I mean, we unfortunately, one of the things that happened when Elon Musk bought Twitter is he made it much harder for everyone else to find out what was going on Twitter. It used to be that Twitter was very open. A lot of academics and scholars did research on Twitter to find out, okay, what is happening on Twitter? How many people are sharing comments about this video? How many people are going on Twitter to say, hey, I saw 30 minutes of this discussion and I didn't like it, or I did like it. That's not something that it's easy for us to find out anymore. And so we may never know, what did this really do?
I'm going to play you another clip. Here's the Republican nominee for President of the United States praising the leaders of Russia, North Korea, and China.
I know Putin, I know President Xi, I know Kim Jong-un of North Korea, I know every one of them. And let me tell you, people will say, oh, this is terrible. He said, I'm not saying anything good or bad. They're at the top of their game. They're tough, they're smart, they're vicious, and they're going to protect their country, whether they love their country. They probably do. It's just a different form of love, but they're going to protect their country. But these are tough people at the top of their game.
Professor Nagler from New York University, does it matter to the all-important swing state undecideds that Donald Trump's public statements so often barely make sense?
I think it does. I think that the interesting thing is whether or not those people hear enough of those statements and whether or not the media bother to comment on how little they make sense. Like, for instance, the statements he just made, he may well think that the leaders of foreign governments are tough and smart, and that may be true. It's the other things he says that the media seems to not necessarily pick up on so much. All the things he says that are clearly false, all the things he says that suggest that maybe he's a very old man with poor memory now. There's the recent incident where he talked about being in a helicopter that almost went down with Willie Brown. Now anyone can misremember incidents that happened a long time ago, but given that we just went through the whole Biden adventure of voters essentially deciding, hey, he is too old, Trump, displays incidents like such as that one, where it looks like, wait a minute, maybe this is really an old man, and voters should be thinking about that. It was interesting in the video that he posted on Twitter. There's a lot of footage of him in his much younger days, and it may well be that the campaign has decided that they need to emphasize a different version of Trump to people. But I think it does hurt with swing voters when they see that this is someone who is saying things that simply don't make sense. And that's a little bit, I think, of what dovetails with, the Democrats' favorite new word of calling him weird.
And how does Elon Musk benefit from hosting this event and being so openly partisan?
So Musk's role in this is quite dangerous, and this gets to, again, the way Twitter has changed since he took it over. He controls the platform. He decides how the algorithm on it works, what gets amplified and what doesn't. And that's quite scary, because imagine that he decides, well, nothing that's positive about Kamala Harris will gain any traction on Twitter, and only things that are negative about her will. That means someone on Twitter, not really knowing what's behind what they see, not knowing what's in that algorithm because it's a black box, they could go on Twitter and see nothing but negative things about Harris. And they might infer, oh, no one likes Harris. No one has anything good to say about Harris. When in fact, this is simply Elon Musk hiding the positive information. So I think we're in a very dangerous world where one person has complete control of the algorithm that is showing what a set of people see. And what he gets out of this is mysterious in his purchase of Twitter. He bought it. He took away a lot of its functionality for people. The only thing he seems to be getting from this is maybe there's some ego gratification, and there's the amplification of his political views. I think he sees this as his way to have a very large bullhorn. It's his own little bully pulpit.
Right. So in a minute, do you think an event like this, then, just picking up on what you said there, does that strengthen the calls for more social media regulation, or is it simply a pure expression of First Amendment rights to free speech?
I think it shows that the need for transparency on social media. I don't think anyone ever envisioned First Amendment right to free speech as one person controlling the amount of speech that other people see and them not knowing it. Again, that's what's dangerous about algorithmic control. The people on the platform don't know why they are seeing what they are seeing. So I think it certainly is a very strong argument for why we want transparency in the platforms, simply for them to tell us, okay, we are a private company. Twitter or X now is a private company. And by the way, we're just not going to let any speech that is pro-Harris circulate. Okay, that's free speech. But it's a different world if you say, well, we're a private firm and but we control this huge media apparatus, and we're not going to tell anybody what's happening behind the curtain. That's a very dangerous world, and that's a world where I think regulation could play a big role without curtailing free speech, but making it much more open and transparent speech.
Given us much to think about there, and we thank you for it, Professor Jonathan Nagler from New York University. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for having me on.